Good afternoon. I'm Andy Dailey, the director of Uptown International School. I'm here with my colleague, Nesma Hassan, the IB PYP Coordinator Designate. A little bit about me first, and then we'll go to Nesma. And I am the director of Uptown International School. I have been the executive director of Albanian College Durrës in Durrës, Albania, and then as well as the second campus, Albanian College Tirana. At that school, I oversaw the authorization, implementation, and successful teaching of 2 IB PYP programs, 2 IB middle years programs, and 2 IB diploma programs. Prior to that, I worked here in Egypt at New Cairo British International School. At that school, I helped establish the IB diploma program. Prior to that, I was in Jordan, and I worked at International Academy Amman, helping to establish an IB diploma program. Before that, I worked at American International School here in Egypt as an IB history teacher for the diploma program and IB CAS coordinator for the diploma program. I have helped establish 9 IB programs in my career. I've been an IB workshop leader in 2 different areas and an examiner in 2 different areas. A curriculum developer for the IB in 2 different areas, and I write textbooks for higher education to support the teaching and learning of IB diploma history and IB middle years individuals and societies. So I have been working since 1993 in overseas education. I'm American, and that's about it. If you need to know more, you're welcome to visit our website at uisegypt.com, and there's a bit more about my biography there. Finally get that out. Nesma, you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nesma Hassan. I'm PYP Coordinator Designate. I've been in the field of education for 13 years. I've worked in language schools, American international schools, and 2 IB PYP authorized schools. I've worked as a homeroom teacher and a PYP coordinator deputy before.
So we're going to get started with questions that we have been emailed previously. And we would love to hear from you, questions through Zoom or our Facebook page, and we'll answer them as we can. And if you need further clarifications, just email the question again, maybe with a bit more accuracy. So first of all, thank you to a lady named Mona. You've written us 3 questions. And so those questions are the first. For the IG education, the British Council provides a lot of training courses for teachers and admin to understand the mechanism of the education. Is there a similar body for IB education? So I'm going to read, I've read that question in English. I'm going to have Nesma ask the question in Arabic, so those of us who are not fluent in English can understand what the question was and how we're going to address it.
Okay, so السؤال بيقول في الاي جي او في النظام البريطاني القنصلية البريطانية بتوفر تدريبات للمدرسين علشان يقدروا انهم يدرسوا المنهج. هل في حاجة بنفس النظام ده للاي بي او الوضع مختلف؟
So the question is essentially, does IB have a body that oversees teacher training? The answer to that is yes. It's the IB Educator Network, which is part of the International Baccalaureate Organization. I myself have been a workshop leader for teachers from around the world, did that for 12 years and conducted 60 workshops throughout Europe and the Middle East. So as a workshop leader, I have to be a certified teacher of IB programs. I have to have multiple years of experience, successful experience. I have to apply for that. I have to have references and recommendations for that. Once that happens, the IB reviews my application as a workshop leader. And then I have to go for training as a workshop leader. If that training was successful, then I can become a workshop leader, and I will be assigned at some point to a workshop. So when I did the workshop as a workshop leader, I'm evaluated just like I would be evaluated at school as a teacher to make sure that I know what I'm talking about, that I have some accuracy in this, that I've differentiated the instruction to make sure everyone in the classroom understands what I'm trying to lead them to, whether that's to understand the curriculum or the assessments or the approaches to teaching and learning in the workshop. So there is training for workshop leaders, and then there is evaluation somehow of workshop leaders. So all IB teachers in schools that are either having a curriculum change, which happens every 6 or 7 years, or the school is newly authorized, or there's been some other change, all those teachers involved must be trained. So our school, Uptown International, will start in September. And so sometime between September and December, we hope, we will have a workshop for all PYP teachers. It is required, it's not an option, and that is making the PYP happen. I've taken this workshop before, but because I'm in a different school, I had to take it again. So we really get to know our programs very well, and but that's just part of the process. Each teacher who does this training, any training, gets a certificate from the IB, okay? So to repeat everything I just said, there is an official body that ensures the quality and content of IB workshops, whether that is primary years program, middle years program, or diploma program. Now that was a large mouthful of words, so I'm going to turn it over to Nesma, who will offer a summary of that in Arabic.
هو مستر أندي بيقول إن في منظمة اسمها منظمة البكالوريا الدولية، هي المسؤولة عن اعتماد مدربين. المدربين دول مهمتهم هم تدريب المدرسين في المدارس في أي منطقة في العالم. والمدربين دول بيتم اختيارهم بناء على سنوات الخبرة وعلى طرق التعليم وخبرتهم في نظام البكالوريا الدولية. بناء عليه البكالوريا الدولية بتديهم موافقة أو اعتماد إن هم يدربوا المدرسين. وبيتم تقييم المدربين دول بشكل دوري بناء على المحتوى اللي بيقدموه وعلى طرق التعلم اللي بيستعملوها أو طرق التعليم. وفي تدريبات معتمدة من البكالوريا الدولية، وفي متطلبات معينة من البكالوريا الدولية لأنواع التدريب اللي بتتقدم للمدرسين. وأساس أو في تدريب معين اسمه كيف يعمل نظام البكالوريا الدولية، وده من متطلبات البكالوريا الدولية للمدرسين قبل ما يدخلوا الفصل ويبتدوا يتعاملوا مع الطلاب أو يبتدوا العملية التعليمية.
If that is not clear, you are very welcome to email us the question again, or to ask that question on Zoom or on our Facebook page now, and we'll get around to it in a minute. Also from Mona, thank you, Mona, for your questions. I heard that there is no specific curriculum books, only outline is provided, and the administration chooses the books to teach from. Is that true? If yes, how is the curriculum built? On what basis should the school administration choose the books? So for primary years program, which are kids from 3 years old to grade 5, there is the primary years program, which is a framework for teaching. So it is not a curriculum. So the curriculum is built by the school in the PYP. What we base the curriculum on are standards, standards that we can take from anywhere. We can take the standards from Egypt. We can take them from the United States, from Britain, from Mongolia. It does not matter. We have decided to take the Common Core standards of the a typical American system. So we know what skills or what content we need to teach by the end of grade 1, for example, or grade 2, grade 3, grade 4. That's all fine. But we do not use textbooks. We instead use a variety of resources. So a textbook, as you all know, and we've all been through it, me and everybody else listening to this program, what we know is that the textbook teaches to the middle of the class. So if we take a book in math, it just teaches math, and it doesn't consider the needs of the students. I don't like math very much, and I suffered as a student with math, but I was excellent at reading, at music, at whatever it might be. But the curriculum kept teaching me as if I were a normal middle-range student, and it was not able to meet my needs of understanding of whatever, differentiation of instruction, the content, or explaining in some other way. So what we do as a school, and all PYP schools operate this way, or should, is that we don't use textbooks for this. Instead, we use online resources, we use the library, we invent our resources, we may use games, or we may use something else. The point is we need to meet the standard that is required. The content or whatever we should learn by the end of grade 1 in math or English or social sciences, we meet that standard, but in a different way that does not rely on textbooks. I'm going to stop and let Nesma answer this part with primary, and then I'll go on to middle years and IB Diploma.
هو السؤال بيسأل هل احنا بنستعمل كتب لتدريس المحتوى في نظام البكالوريا الدولية للمرحلة الابتدائية. فالإجابة زي ما مستر أندي قال هو نظام البكالوريا الدولية هو مش منهج، هو إطار عمل. فما فيش نقاط معينة لازم إن احنا ندرسها. إطار العمل بيقول لنا المفروض الطالب يوصل لإيه في آخر السنة. احنا بنبتدي ناخد إطار العمل ده ونستعمله مع المعايير الأمريكية، وبنبتدي بناء عليهم نعرف بالظبط ايه اللي المفروض يدرس وايه المفروض الطالب يعرفه خلال السنة. فالكتب ما بتوفرش احتياج الطالب او ما بتبقاش مختلفة في المستوى، هو بيدرس لمستوى معين وهو المستوى اللي في النص. مفيش أي طريقة للاختلاف ما بين الطلاب. فعلشان كده احنا ما بنستعملش كتب، احنا بنستعمل الكتب الوحيدة اللي احنا بنستعملها هي كتب القراءة. بنستعمل ألعاب تعليمية، بنستعمل طرق كتير جدا ومصادر كتير جدا للتعلم. مش واحدة منهم هي الكتب، احنا مش بنستعمل الكتب لأن هي مش بتتماشى مع فلسفة المدرسة في التعليم.
So I assume that we've covered the primary years program. For middle years program, we do not teach by units of learning. Instead, units of inquiry, excuse me. We start with grade 6 on to grade 10. We have subjects. There's lots of subjects in middle years program. Those will be individuals and societies, which is a combination of economics, history, and geography. We must teach a minimum of 2 languages. For us, that is English, French, and Arabic. We have to teach physical education. We have to teach sciences as a group, physics, chemistry, and biology combined in grades 6 through 8, and then by subject. Each of those, physics, biology, and chemistry, is separate subjects starting in grade 9. We have a class called Design, where kids formulate solutions to issues. Visual arts, music and drama in different measures and in different years, which we can go into another time, and more. And so as we teach them as single subjects, we can definitely use textbooks because there are textbooks designed specifically for the IB middle years program. I know because I wrote one of them. And so what we do in these textbooks are not just about memorizing content, like which date did Columbus sail to America. That does not really matter. What matters is the skills that we derive. So what we have in each subject is an emphasis on skills. Again, backed up, not just from the IB, but also backed up by the Common Core standards in the United States. So we must meet those standards and those objectives for learning in each grade level and in each subject. So, for example, in grade 6, it might be that you learn how to analyze a source and how important is the origin of the source of information. What limitations does that provide us? What would be good about a source from that place? And how do we know this is a good source to use in studying history, for example? So it's really about the skills, and it doesn't really matter if you use a source from ancient Egypt or from the last 20 years in the United States. What matters is you have the ability to analyze a source. This is a small example overall. So back to the original question, we do have textbooks in IB middle years program. We have specialized textbooks specifically for the IB middle years program.
استكمالا لإجابة السؤال اللي فات اللي هو استخدام الكتب، احنا الإجابة الأولانية كانت بناء على نظام السنوات الابتدائية. أما بالنسبة لنظام السنوات الإعدادية أو الميدل سكول، المفروض إن بيبتدي استعمال الكتب الدراسية ابتداء من المرحلة الإعدادية. بس الكتب الدراسية هنا بتبقى مصممة خصيصاً للمواد اللي بيتم تدريسها في البرنامج ده، لأن بداية من المرحلة الإعدادية بتبتدي المواد تنفصل، فبتبتدي تدريس اللغات أو التربية الرياضية أو العلوم، كل مادة بتبقى مستقلة بذاتها. فالكتب بتبقى مصممة خصيصا لده، وبيبقى الهدف من استعمال الكتب مش الحفظ، هو بيبقى الهدف هو تطوير مهارات الطلبة المختلفة، ومنها هي طبعا تحليل المصادر أو فهم المصدر والقدرة على تحليله أو مقارنته بمصادر أخرى. ودي بتبقى برضو قائمة على إطار العمل بتاع البكالوريا الدولية، وكمدرسة إحنا بنبتدي نشتغل على المعايير الأمريكية.
Just like the PYP, the middle years program also requires other sources. In no possibility, in no world I know of, can you teach successfully anywhere with just a textbook. So we also, and that doesn't matter which program you're using. We have science labs for the sciences. Students must conduct at least 50% of their instruction time should be experimentation, actual physical science, doing it. We use and have a large library to allow students to research and to write and to explore. Obviously, there's online tools to use as well. It's important to approach teaching and learning in the primary years program and the diploma program is with as many tools and resources as possible. If you have a tiny little library that's a book closet, you really can't do the IB program correctly. In fact, you would be damaging your students. If you're doing only online teaching, this is another disaster, in my personal opinion. You need a variety of sources. You need functional, fully equipped, well-led and organized science labs. Otherwise, you're not really doing science. And so now I'll go to, let you translate that, and then we'll go to the diploma.
للتوضيح، هو في السنوات الإعدادية التعليم والتعلم ما بيبقاش مقتصر على الكتب الدراسية، برضو بيستمر استخدام مصادر مختلفة زي معامل العلوم وزي المكتبة أكيد لتطوير مهارة البحث، واستخدام شبكة الإنترنت ومصادر مختلفة كتير بالإضافة إلى الكتب.
So while the primary years program and the middle years programs are frameworks and we can develop the curriculum ourselves, the IB Diploma is a framework of teaching, a way to teach, but also a curriculum.
على النظام السنوات الإعدادية مختلف عن السنوات الابتدائية، في إن السنوات الابتدائية هو إطار عمل بس ما فيش منهج، أما بداية من السنوات الإعدادية فبيبتدي يبقى في منهج محدد ونقاط معينة للتدريس.
So what's good about the IB Diploma is that it does have a curriculum. But what's really good about the curriculum is it gives you lots and lots of options as a school or as a teacher. So you can meet whatever, let's say we're teaching Arabic in IB Diploma, Egyptian students would have to take IB Arabic Literature, which is a great course. And so we have to meet certain needs required by the government, the Ministry of Education of Egypt, and you can do that. You meet those needs through this very diverse curriculum. So a higher level Arabic language class would have 3 examinations, for example, after 18 months of study. And so it may be that you do a translation. It may be that the government tells us that you have to do certain titles as a translation. Well, that fits within the IB. So we have a curriculum, but it's flexible. It's also strenuous. It requires you to have a lot of skills like analysis, thinking, ability to read, how to use a library, how to conduct your own experiments in sciences, and of course, interpretation.
في الدبلومة أو المستوى الثانوي بيستمر استخدام المصادر المختلفة، وبيبقى في منهج بس بيتيح فرصة الاختيار للطلبة وللمدرسة، وأكيد ده بيبقى مع تحقيق متطلبات وزارة التربية والتعليم بخصوص المناهج المفضلة.
So again, the diploma, you will definitely have textbooks. There are textbooks specifically designed for the teaching of IB diploma subjects. Not all subjects, but most subjects. You can use textbooks from other systems also. Depends on the subject and depends on the book, how successful that would be. I don't think of any course that doesn't have extra materials that come from the library, come from using the lab, coming from independent research, or the internet. So you, again, like PYP, MYP, and DP, you need to have a variety of tools. The learning does not occur from just a textbook. That's just not possible in the IB.
هو تأكيد لأن في المستوى الثانوي أو الدبلومة برضو بيتم استخدام كتب للمواد الدراسية. ممكن تكون كتب مصممة للآي بي أو لنظام البكالوريا الدولية أو كتب من أنظمة مختلفة. ده بيعتمد على نوع الكتاب والمحتوى اللي هو بيقدمه وطريقة تقديم المحتوى. بس ده عمره ما بينفي استخدام المصادر المختلفة، لأن التعلم لا يمكن يتم من خلال مصدر واحد، وخصوصا لو كان كتاب دراسي محدد لمستوى طلبة معينة. وعلشان كده احنا بنشدد على استخدام مصادر تعلم مختلفة اللي هي منها المكتبة ومعامل العلوم زي ما ذكرنا.
Sorry, you're doing all this translation. You're exhausted. So in short, PYP, so for early year students who are 3 years old through grade 5, there are no textbooks. There's books, just not textbooks. For grades 6 through 10, there are textbooks in most subjects, but they're supplemented by lots of other resources. In grades 11 and 12 at IB Diploma, there are textbooks that are available, and we will use those in addition to other resources. I think we're all okay. This question was from Mona, and Mona had a third question. This will be easier to answer and faster. Thanks, Mona. The question she wrote is the curriculum and the school supervision, are the curriculum and school administration supervised by a certain body to ensure the quality of education being offered? The answer to that is 1000%. First of all, you have to have a candidacy phase, which we will enter in September or whenever the government says that we can open school. So we will have 2 years of very close supervision, which involves us reporting everything we do to an appointed IB consultant. So for 2 years, we'll be observed by the consultant. And then we have a visiting team of 2 or more people who will come to the school, inspect all of our records, observe our teachers, talk to the students, talk to the parents, look at all the documentation, policies, admissions processes, every single thing, and determine if we are at the IB standard. And if we are, we will be allowed to be an IB authorized school. So that process alone is just 2 years. Let me stop and let Vanessa translate, and then we'll come back.
السؤال هو هل بيتم الإشراف على المدرسة وعلى إدارتها من قبل أي مؤسسة في نظام البكالوريا الدولية؟ والإجابة هو أكيد بيتم الإشراف من خلال منظومة البكالوريا الدولية نفسها. إحنا دلوقتي في مرحلة إن إحنا قدمنا للبكالوريا الدولية، ودي أول خطوة في اعتماد المدرسة. البكالوريا الدولية بتبتدي إنها تعين مستشار للمدرسة، هو المسؤول عن مراجعة كل الأوراق المتعلقة بالمدرسة بخصوص النظام الدراسي، بخصوص البوليسيز اللي هي الأنظمة اللي هيتم تطبيقها في المدرسة. وبعد كده بيبتدي يبدأ المرحلة اللي بعد كده، هي مجموعة من البكالوريا الدولية، من منظومة البكالوريا الدولية بتيجي تزور المدرسة وبتتأكد إن المدرسة ماشية على متطلبات البكالوريا الدولية، وبعديها بيتم الاعتماد.
So every 5 years, our program will be supervised or inspected by an IB, by the IB. Sometimes this is done online, but usually it's done in person. So we will fill out lots of information and details, provide samples, everything. IB will inspect that and could send a team to visit us. But this is every 5 years. We have to go through some form of renewal and like a reauthorization process in all programs, PYP, MYP, and DP.
وكل 5 سنين بيتم تقييم تطبيق المدرسة للنظام من خلال المجموعة اللي بتيجي تزور المدرسة اللي جاية من البكالوريا الدولية، وبيتم إرسالهم كل 5 سنين للتحقق من إن المدرسة فعلا ماشية على المتطلبات ونظام البكالوريا الدولي. وده لل3 برامج اللي هي البرنامج الابتدائي والإعدادي والثانوي.
So for grades 5, grade 10, and then for grade 12, we have different types of assessment that the IB will take samples of, in PYP, samples of exhibition. And in grade 10, there will be samples of the final project that kids are required to conduct. It'll be moderated. People from somewhere else appointed by IB will inspect the student work to see if it's at the right standard and quality. In grade 12, all students have IB examinations. Those are the ultimate way to assess whether the school is doing its job correctly or not. They'll look at, of course, all types of examinations, both samples from within the school that we mark as teachers, and also final products, which are examined from examiners trained and appointed by the International Baccalaureate.
في كذا طريقة للتقييم بتختلف على حسب المرحلة العمرية، سواء للفصل الخامس الابتدائي أو الفصل العاشر أو ال 12. في الفصل الخامس والعاشر بتبقى أساسها مشاريع تخرج ومعرض الطلبة بيقوموا بتنفيذه علشان يقدروا يوضحوا إيه اللي هم اتعلموه. في السنة ال 12 بتبقى اختبارات من منظمة البكالوريا الدولية، وطبعا منظمة البكالوريا الدولية بتطلع على طرق تقييم الطلبة من خلال المشاريع دي أو من خلال الاختبارات دي للتأكد من طريقة للمدرسة للطلبة.
So, thank you, Mona, for your 3 questions, which were not, we were not able to quickly answer them, but I hope that we gave you a fully comprehensive explanation. If not, please feel free to email us back. We're going to go to some of the questions that we have been sent on Zoom. There are 3 waiting for attention, and then we'll move to our Facebook questions. So keep them coming. We'll get to them eventually. So we have a question from Reda. It says, good afternoon. How is IB similar or different to in applying to university other than educational systems? Let me read it again. Good afternoon. How is IB similar or different in applying to university than other educational systems? It really depends on the nation you're applying to. There will be a different system or requirements from Germany, for example, from Britain, for the United States. So as an American, I can answer easily, is that the university systems have applications. They don't care what system you're coming from. You'd be coming from China, they don't care where you're from. They just have things that need to be done. The application, have a report about your progress in the school, recommendation letters, maybe an interview, that type of thing. In the United States, only later, once you've gotten into the university, they'll ask you to report your IB diploma results once you've entered the university itself. So the first thing is to apply to get in based on what you've already done. But after the IB exam results are released in July, your last year of grade 12, then they'll look at that and determine how many course credits you get towards your bachelor's degree, for example. Some universities in the United States can reward up to, I think, 40 or 35, 15, 30, 45 credit hours towards a bachelor's degree. And a total bachelor's degree usually takes around 120. So again, you apply to the university as an individual, and then you determine the value of your IB. In England, it's a bit different. You submit all of your documentation through a single website. It's called the UCAS system, and they decide, you select 4 or 5, 3 or 4 or 5 universities total, I think maybe it's 3, of where you would like to apply and what programs in that. And then you give them all the data, and they determine if you're an IB student, for example, yes, you can come to our school, but you must have this many points in your IB diploma. The maximum number of points in a diploma is 45, and about 1%, perhaps a little bit less, of students around the world achieve a 45. It's a special score. But they'll say, for example, you're very welcome to come to Nottingham University if you score a 32 out of 45. So they give conditional acceptance based on your score. You can find out more about that on UCAS system. Just Google that, UCAS, UK University Admissions. It'll give you some explanation. Some places like Germany, they're very curious if you have an IB diploma or you're planning to get one, and they'll tell you what courses you have to take in IB diploma. So their admissions process begins even before you start the diploma, because if you don't take certain courses, you can't attend university in Germany. Since your question was in very good English, I assume that we don't need a translation, but if anyone has a question about university admissions diploma, please ask that question again, and I'll get back to it, and we'll have every translation. We seem to have a phone ringing somewhere here. The next question on Zoom is, I am working in a school and I want to be an IB coordinator, but I don't know where to start or what courses should I take. If you want to be an IB coordinator, you need to apply for an IB coordinator position in your school or another school. So it has nothing to do with IB. But once you are an IB coordinator of any type, whether it be primary years program, middle years program, or diploma program, your school should register you for a coordinator workshop. You can do that on the website www.ibo.org. Once you have the job, it's up, you're an IB coordinator, but to be qualified for any other employment elsewhere or for the IB when they do inspection, you need to have that workshop under your belt. Workshops take 2.5 days in person and I think a month online. Some courses can be done in other ways, but those are the two main systems. Do we have that in Arabic or?
It's just recording.
Yeah, I think that's okay. How will virtual learning be applied regardless of the coronavirus? This is a question being grappled with around the world. And so I'll give a little bit of intro and then I'll let Nesma translate. In short, IB schools clearly do not like teaching online if they're given a choice. That student-teacher interaction in, let's say, grade 1 or 2 is very important. So it is, and so what we are doing or planning to do, but other schools are also doing, you would have an online session in the morning. So when school normally starts, this is when you start as a teacher and the class starts. The teacher will have the kids online, perhaps in Zoom, like what we're doing today. All the kids will be present, they'll share their morning, they'll have 10, 15 minutes of instruction of what today is going to be like. The task will be given, and that maybe come through Atl, for example, our platform for communicating with the parents and recording information. It's specifically designed for IB PYP programs. So that those tasks would be there. And so the teacher would say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then all of you should go to your groups or work by independently. And let's say that there's a kid named Ahmed. So you'll say at 8:15, Ahmed, I'm going to come online and you and I are going to talk about what you're doing. And we'll see what you're doing. You're going to show me. And then I'm going to feed back to you. At 8:20, I'll talk to Nasli, and Nasli and I are going to have a conversation as a teacher to a student. Then maybe Nasli and Ahmed can go online on Zoom in their own conference room and have a conversation about what they're learning and evaluate each other. So it's not going to be constant direct lecturing from a teacher. That's not the IB system. It'll be small group and individual efforts online throughout the day. And then the teacher may give the whole group a task to do individually and just say, I'll come back in 45 minutes and we're going to talk about what you're doing. We'll be able to lend library books, hopefully, from our school's library and have a distribution system that your kids can get reading material or other supplies from the school to do their learning at home, maybe puzzles and games that help them understand a mathematic concept or a science concept, something of that nature. We will have, hopefully, online reading from the library and the librarians. So we'll have story time. We hope to have puppet shows and things like that that teach a skill or a concept. To deal with emotions, to deal with being home during the this health crisis around the world, and we probably have online sessions with our counselor who would be able to talk to kids about how they're feeling and other things such as anti-bullying workshops and things like that. But we do plan to learn. We plan to teach online if required by the government. If not, we'll be in classes like everybody else, but we will have instituted health precautions and safety. So we'll be talking about cleaning and sanitization of students and teachers and other support staff coming and going from the school, and wearing face masks, whatever those requirements become. We are in consultation with a medical doctor who hopefully will work in our school to help develop safety protocols for when we are able to teach in the school facility itself. So I've given a lot of information. Thanks, Gada, for your question. I'm going to turn it over to Nesma, who is going to translate into Arabic, and if there's something I've missed, then we'll get to it.
السؤال هو ازاي هيتم التعليم عن بعد لو أزمة الكورونا استمرت. بالنسبة لنا التعليم عن بعد مش هيبقى أفضل اختيار، لأن احنا عارفين أهمية تعامل الأطفال مع بعض والتعامل في نطاق المدرسة، إن هو ده أفضل طريقة. بس لو هو ده الحاجة الوحيدة اللي متوفرة، فاحنا هنقوم بعملية التعليم عن بعد، وهتكون من خلال حصص. على سبيل المثال على برنامج زوم هيتم تعريف الطلاب باليوم هيبقى ماشي ازاي وانواع الانشطه اللي هتبقى موجوده. الانشطه هتبقى موجوده تفصيلا على تودل، وهو البرنامج اللي احنا هنستعمله. هيبقى فيه فرص للعمل الجماعي، ان الطلبات تبتدي تشترك مع بعض من خلال نفس البرنامج، او يشتغلوا كل طالب على حده. هيبتدي المعلم ان هو يدخل كل فتره يتحقق من اللي الطلاب بيعملوه، واكيد هيبقى في استخدام مصادر تعلم مختلفه هيتم توفيرها من خلال المدرسه، منها طبعا القراءه من خلال شبكه الانترنت. وهيتم طبعا المعلم هيقدم التغذيه راجعه للطلبه، او هيبتدي يقول لهم ايه النقاط اللي هم محتاجين يشتغلوا عليها، او يوفر لهم انشطه ثانيه علشان مستوى التشالنج او مستوى اختلاف مستويات الطلاب.
I hope that answered that question. Now for the 17,000 questions on Facebook, we'll start answering those now. The first one from Ranush, thank you for your message. The question is, are there any vacancies for next year? Yes, there are a few vacancies left, and you can find those on our website, uisegypt.com, and you'll find that under careers. If you have any further information about that, you can call our hotline number and get some more details. There should be also, you can just email careers@uisegypt.com. So with that, asks us, I'm really excited about finishing the building, not just you. It looks really great. Thank you. We agree. We would like to know more about the IB system and its advantages compared to other international systems. Very difficult question to answer simply, but I will do what I can. I grew up in the American system, and I taught in the British system as well as the IB system. So I have a very good range of these common large systems of education. What I like most, I would say this first: you can be successful in the American system, and you can be successful in the Egyptian system. You can be successful in the British system. You can, and most people have gone through those systems and have become something important and special and educated and all those things. So yes, that's entirely possible. What I like about the IB is that it's based on the most recent educational research, specifically on brain development, about teaching and learning, about whatever that might be, special needs, for example. So it's not a stagnant system that has something to do with politics. So in America, I'm from Tennessee, and a lot of what we teach is based on what local people think is important. But that's not so in another state. They are looking at a broader international system. So, for example, the content might be specific to an area, or it's very important to some government official. The IB is not aligned with any government. So first of all, it's international, and its curriculum is built by people like me, an international educator who now lives in Egypt, and has also lived in Jordan and Albania and Croatia and the United States. So it's much more international. It's less local in its outlook. I'll stop talking, let Nesma translate, and then go back. Sorry, I keep repeating.
هو سؤال بيسأل عن مميزات نظام البكالوريا الدورية وازاي هو مختلف عن باقي الأنظمة التعليمية. هو مستر أندي بيقول إن أي بني آدم يقدر يكون ناجح في أي نظام تعليمي. النظام التعليمي مش هو اللي بيشترط نجاح البني آدم. بس نظام البكالوريا الدولية من مميزاته إن هو بيعتمد على أفضل طرق التعليم والتعلم بناء على أبحاث علمية. وهو مش معتمد على وجهة نظر البلد اللي الطالب موجود فيها للتعليم وإيه هي أهم حاجة إن الطالب يتعلمها، بل بالعكس هو نظام عالمي غير مرتبط ببلد بحد ذاته، فالطالب بيبقى عنده نظرة شاملة.
So IB also believes in the teaching of skills. You might get them in the American curriculum, you might get them in the British system, and hopefully you'll get some skills. But the main concentration in IB is skills, whether that be ability to read and write, to communicate what you know, to analyze, to know where to get information and what to do with that information. So in that way, it's very skills oriented and not so content oriented. You get content, but it's what do you do with that content that's important.
الاعتماد في نظام البكالوريا الدولية على المهارات أكثر من المحتوى. في محتوى، في علم الطلبة بيبتدوا يوصلوا له، بس ده بيبقى من خلال استخدام مهارات، سواء هي مهارات لغة من قراءة أو كتابة، استماع أو تحدث، أو مهارات زي مهارات التفكير أو مهارات التواصل. فالاعتماد مش أو الأساس مش المحتوى اللي بيدرس، ولكن هو استخدام الطالب للمحتوى اللي هو بيتعلمه وطريقة تطبيقه للمحتوى.
One of the skills that we don't really emphasize is memorization. Memorization is not a skill that's useful usually, and a lot of national systems, including the American system, really push a lot of memorization, and we don't believe in that.
المهارة الوحيدة اللي احنا ما بنعتمدش عليها ومش مقتنعين ان هي تعتبر مهارة هي مهارة الحفظ، لان هي مش بتفيد الطالب بأي حاجة. المهم هو استخدام المحتوى اللي الطالب قدر ان هو يفهمه.
The IB system encourages us to think of kids as individuals. Every kid is different. I learn differently from Nesma, and all of you listening today learn something differently or in a different way. You might learn visually, or you might learn orally, or you might learn by reading something. And additionally, we have special needs, and some kids have different needs as a result. They need someone to hold their hand while they're learning, or they need to build something to understand a concept instead of just putting facts and figures on a piece of paper.
نظام البكالوريا الدولية بينظر للطالب على إنه فرد مختلف ويختلف عن الأفراد الآخرين وليه احتياجات مختلفة، وهدفنا هو تلبية احتياجات الطلبة اللي تخليهم في الآخر يقدروا إن هم يتعلموا بشكل أفضل.
So this student-centered approach to education is very central to IB teaching.
الأساس في الآي بي أو في البكالوريا الدولية هو إن الطالب هو محور العملية التعليمية وليس المدرس.
Character development is at the center of IB, not just because it's student-centered and we try to meet the needs of the kids as individuals, and we do, but we have the IB learner profile. So we want kids to be caring, we want them to be inquisitive, we want them to take risks and not just do the same thing over and over and over. But we have that central understanding that we're developing a thinker, a learner. You don't find that in other curriculums.
بيعتمد برنامج البكالوريا الدولية على تطوير شخصية الطلاب، وده بيتم من خلال ملامح متعلم. في 10 ملامح للمتعلم، منها إن هو يبقى مفكر وإن هو يقدر يقوم بعمليات بحث واستقصاء، وده كله بيطور من شخصية الطالب.
I find a lot of curriculum or approaches to teaching in schools to be more about controlling children. So you have people sitting in rows, for example, or you give kids a block of information which they all need to know. That makes teaching easier, even if less successfully. And it's really about that control in the classroom. And I believe that the IB system allows kids to explore, ask questions, be part of building the curriculum. And they feel more engaged and they're more involved in their learning. So we don't have as many behavior problems.
في الأنظمة المختلفة بيكون هدفهم هو السيطرة على الطلبة، وده من خلال إن هم يبقوا قاعدين في صفوف وبيتحكموا في الطلبة بتتعلموا. في البكالوريا الدولية هو أكثر اعتماد على أسئلة الطلاب، هم عايزين يتعلموا إيه ومشاركتهم في العملية التعليمية.
I hope that was the 75 million word answer you wanted. If we need to clarify that answer, please let me know. So thank you, Wafa, for that question. The next question is in Arabic, so Nesma is going to have to read it.
هو السؤال فين المدرسة بالظبط؟ هو بيسأل على موقع المدرسة، وهي المدرسة موجودة في المقطم. موقع المدرسة بالظبط موجود على الموقع بتاعنا على الإنترنت uisegypt.com. حضرتك تقدري تخشي على الموقع وهتشوفي الخريطة ومكان المدرسة بالظبط.
Thank you. I hope that's clear. This our conversation today is really about IB. We're happy to answer questions at the school, but we're really here to help you understand IB generally, no matter where your students is located or even another country. We just want to be helpful. A lot of people don't really understand some of the aspects of IB, and we see that in the questions and forums on Facebook and other places. So we just want to be offer a service here. The next question is from Mohammed. It's an excellent question. Thanks, Mohammed. That is, why are you mentioning Common Core? How is that related to IB PYP and MYP? This is a glorious question. I'm going to let Nesma answer in English and Arabic, so she gets double punishment. But thank you for this question. We love it.
Okay, I'll start answering in English and then I translate. As Mr. Andy mentioned before, the IB is a framework, it's not a curriculum. The American standards are more specific and what exactly we're going to teach and what we want students to reach by the end of each grade level. And that's why we're aligning the IB framework with the American standards. It makes it easier for teachers and for parents to monitor students' progress and know exactly what is expected from students and what exactly to be taught inside a class.
That's as simple as we can make it.
Yeah.
It's just a ladder for us to know where kids should be at this grade level, so that you understand it and we understand it, that we're working from the same understanding. We could invent our own standards, but there's no reason to. The Common Core standards are a world recognized quality standard for us to meet. There are other standards. We could use British standards, we could use Virginia, New York standards, German, not that we will, but there are other options. The Common Core is just the easiest to access and understand.
كترجمة هو السؤال بيسأل على المعايير الأمريكية وليه إحنا بنتكلم على المعايير الأمريكية وإحنا بنتكلم على نظام البكالوريا الدولية. بالمختصر هو زي ما قلنا قبل كده البكالوريا الدولية هو إطار عمل وليس منهج. وعلشان كده إطار العمل ده عام وشامل مش بيخصص بالظبط إيه اللي بيتم تدريسه. علشان كده بيتم استخدامه مع المعايير الأمريكية علشان نحدد بالظبط إيه اللي مطلوب إن الطلبة يبقوا عارفينه في آخر كل مرحلة. وده بيخلي الموضوع أسهل للمدرسين وللأهالي إنهم يقدروا يعرفوا إيه تطور أبنائهم ولأي مدى هم قادرين إن هم يوصلوا للمتوقع منهم من كل مرحلة.
So I know that we have several questions on Zoom. So we started with Zoom questions, and now we're going through the Facebook questions. And when we're finished with those, we'll move back to Zoom questions. So if your question's been asked on Zoom, be patient, we will get to you. One question, however, is important. And the question was, is this session being recorded? And the answer to that is yes. And so it'll be available for playback later so that you can listen more carefully, or you ask us another question may further clarify something we said here. So the next question is from Omnea. Omnea is asking, what are the core differences between education and the IB curriculum, especially in early years? Well, there's two things here in that I'll say something and then Nesma, you can add to it. Nesma is an expert in primary education. I'm an expert in talking. It never seems to end. So essentially the British system it's usually we say British curriculum, but that's not very accurate. What we have from the British government is a list of objectives, and those objectives are met within a few years. So it gives flexibility in the system. A curriculum usually means, at least in American English, a year by year or even day by day or month by month framework, teach this. So the British system is a bit more flexible, but the IB, there is no curriculum for the primary years program, and that includes early years education. We can choose a standard to use, for example, the American Common Core or even the British objectives, but as you already know, we're following the US Common Core Standards to have an idea of the goalposts that we want to reach at the end of every year. Not that every kid will make that, but that's the goal. So the difference, I'll talk about the British system very quickly, and then we'll move to Nesma, who will talk about play-based education in the early years. So first of all, there's not a huge amount of difference. We understand that early years children, regardless of where they are in the world, 3 to 5 years old, they want to learn. They're naturally curious and they are exploratory. So some of you will be familiar with the Montessori system. It's completely built on that aspect. The British system has goalposts and things to do within those 2 or 3 years. And that's really it. But they do have some aspects of play-based education. Of open curiosity, learning, and questioning. They have that too. There's nothing wrong with the British early year system. It's really quite good. You'll find that IB is very, very similar, and Montessori is pretty similar too. It's all built on the fact that these kids who are 3 and 4 years old, sometimes 5 years old, cannot read and write yet. They'll be very verbal. They learn a lot of language, but they're learning the same thing: share. Learn to share, learn to play together, learn to explore. That's the idea. We all believe in that. The British system would be a bit more rigid, and it's you need to learn this by this date. The IB is a much more flexible system because we know that kids learn differently, and some are faster, some are slower in different subjects, the same kid. And so we have a lot more flexibility. Some kids don't speak very much until they're 4, 5, 6 years old. Completely normal, and we are okay with that. The IB system is quite flexible. So I'll stop talking and let Nesma address this.
السؤال عن ازاي نظام البكالوريا الدولية مختلف عن النظام البريطاني، وخصوصا في مرحلة السنوات اللي نقدر نقول الحضانة أو بداية التعليم. هو النظام البريطاني بيدينا أهداف. الأهداف دي المفروض تطبق في نطاق معين ومن خلال وقت معين. لكن نظام البكالوريا الدولية نظام أكثر مرونة، بيدي فرصة للطلبة إنهم يتعلموا في الوقت اللي هم قادرين يتعلموا فيه، ما فيش أي نوع من أنواع الضغط على الطلبة. وهو قائم على فكرة إن الطلبة أو الأطفال بيبقوا فضوليين بالفطرة، فالهدف هو استخدام فضول الأطفال بطريقة إيجابية، وإن هم يبتدوا يتعلموا عن طريق اللعب وعن طريق الاستكشاف. والهدف من التعلم عن طريق اللعب هو إن هم يتعلموا المشاركة، يتعلموا إزاي يلعبوا مع بعض أو يتعاملوا مع ناس مختلفة، إزاي يقدروا يعبروا عن نفسهم من خلال الكلام لو هم لسه ما عندهمش القدرة على إنهم يكتبوا.
When you have a curriculum, let's say British in this case, because that's what your question, you're often comparing kids to other kids. So if you do not meet these objectives by the end of grade 1, there's something wrong with your kid compared to other kids in the school. We don't believe in that. So again, we have objectives, but every kid's an individual. We need to continue building kids as individuals, not comparing them to the whole grade level, not comparing them to other people in the class. They are special, unique individuals who learn differently. So the idea that IB is a curriculum is not correct. It's a framework. The British have a curriculum. The Americans have a curriculum.
فكرة نظام البكالوريا الدولية هو منهج، فكرة غلط. إنما أي منهج تاني بيعتمد على مقارنة الأطفال بعضهم ببعض، وفكرة تحقيق أهداف في وقت معين. إنما في البكالوريا الدولية الطفل بيتعامل على إنه فرد يتعلم في وقت المناسب ليه، ومش بيتقارن بأقرانه أو بأي طلبة تانيين، وبيتم تعليمه بالطريقة اللي هو حابب يتعلم بيها ويقدر يتعلم بيها بشكل أفضل.
The next question is for Nesma, because she is the coordinator. I will fill in a bit more, but how are you going to work on ATL skills? For those of you who do not know, ATL skills are approaches to learning skills, which we are required to teach in the IB.
Okay, so I start answering in English and then I translate.
A technical issue. There's a delay between us speaking and this. Anything we can do about that? Okay. So again, let's start again. Approaches to learning is the question. How are we going to teach that? I'll leave it to Nesma.
Okay. For Atl Skills, as we mentioned before, the IB focuses on the skills that students use, and we think that these are the tools that are going to help students to apply the knowledge that they gain into real life. Atl skills are not considered to be a part on its own. It's part of what is being taught inside the class and part of the activities. So they are not taught separately. They are fully integrated within the activities that students are doing. So for example, students are sitting in centers. Each center has a different activity. In each activity, students are required to use certain skills. For example, in one activity, they're supposed to use thinking skills and analysis. In another activity, they're supposed to use social skills, different group roles, for example. So students, while they're assessed, the rubric or the assessment tool is shared with them. They know exactly what they're being assessed on. They know what skills they should be displaying. And the teacher is there to observe how they're using their skills within the activity. And this is how students use their skills. And they develop the skills through using them and through the teacher feedback and, of course, self-assessment and peer assessments.
Now, in Arabic, Nesma.
كترجمة لإجابة السؤال ده، هو في مهارات معينة مطلوبة من برنامج البكالوريا الدولية أو نظام البكالوريا الدولية اسمها Atl Skills، اللي هي المهارات العابرة للمواد الدراسية. المهارات دي مش بتدرس بشكل منفصل، المهارات دي جزء لا يتجزأ من وحدة البحث. فمن خلال الأنشطة اللي الطلبة بيمارسوها جوه الفصل أو من خلال الحصة في تقييم بيبقى مع الطلبة عارف بالظبط إيه المهارات اللي المفروض إن هو يتعامل بيها. على سبيل المثال في مهارة التحليل في نشاط معين، في مهارة التعامل مع الآخرين في نشاط آخر. وفي كل نشاط هو معاه ايه بالظبط المهاره اللي هيتم تقييمه عليها. بيبتدي استخدام المهاره دي من خلال النشاط اللي هو بيعمله. المعلم في الفصل بيتم ملاحظه الطالب وهو بيستعمل المهاره دي، وبيبتدي المعلم يديله زي تغذيه رائعه لهو استخدامه للمهاره دي ازاي وايه اللي محتاج ان هو يشتغل عليه. واكيد في تقييم ذاتي، الطالب بيقيم ذاته، وفي تقييم للاقران بيقيموا ذاته.
In the planners provided by the IB for both primary years program and middle years program, the teacher has to clearly state which approaches to learning are being covered in the unit or in the series of lessons. So it has to be integrated already, just as an IB requirement. But thank you for the question, Shireen. That was great. Mona asks this question: how will the parent be included with the child in terms of homework and studying in general, and what is the workload? We will open, well, let me just talk about our school and the world in general. They follow the same kind of philosophy. We are not big into homework. Homework is often used to keep kids busy or under control or require a tutor or extra lessons or the parents to pull their hair out, something like that. It is more important that lower primary children, especially when they go home, they are part of the family. They play, they eat, maybe they have some responsibilities in the house, like helping clean the table or whatever that might be, but they need to feel part of the household. We're very concerned with the social, emotional, and psychological development of children. And if they're spending hours and hours and hours on homework, that's not conducive to learning. That's useful for memorization. So you will have no homework from us in early years programs. For grade 1 and grade 2, you might have 15 or 20 minutes a night, but it should not be anything that isn't exploratory. So for example, we may say, tonight, I need you to go home and look at everything in the refrigerator and make a list of shapes that you find inside the refrigerator. And then we're going to talk about those shapes and in class as part of our math unit. It may be that we're learning to make a survey. So we can survey how many pillows do you have in the house, count them up, how big are they, what shape they're in, what color, whatever that might be. And then we use that data either at home or at school to make a survey, and then we try to interpret what does that mean. So homework should be something engaging and interactive and not require memorization or a tutor. If you require a tutor to teach a kid from our school, then we're doing something wrong, and we need to know that immediately. So homework is de-emphasized. So starting in grade 3, they might have 30 minutes of homework and so forth. In middle years programs, it should be an hour, hour and a half. It's a maximum across all subjects. The IB Diploma homework is central. The kids have to do a lot of reading in advance, a lot of essay writing and working with teams after school. So that's a different story. But for primary kids, we're not so interested in homework. And the system breaks down kids' curiosity, and it makes them hate school and hate learning. It certainly was the effect on me. So I'll let Nesma address this in Arabic, and then we'll go to the next question.
السؤال هو بخصوص الواجبات المدرسية، إلى أي مدى الأهل هيبقى ليهم دور في الواجب المدرسي، وإيه هي نوعية الواجبات المدرسية. فبالنسبة للواجب المدرسي، إحنا كمدرسة مش مؤمنين إن الواجبات المدرسية ليها أهمية قوية في التعليم. إحنا مؤمنين بإن أهم حاجة هي صحة الطلاب النفسية. فمحتاجينهم إن هم لما يرجعوا البيت يحسوا إن هم جزء من العيلة، يبقى ليهم مسؤوليات تجاه عائلتهم أو أي مسؤولية يعملوها من خلال البيت، تنظيف ترابيزات مثلا. لو في أي واجب مدرسي هيتبعت مش هيبقى أكتر من 20 دقيقة لمراحل قليلة، ولما نوصل لمرحلة أو لثالثة ابتدائي هيكون 30 دقيقة حد أقصى. لو نوعية الواجب المدرسي هتبقى مختلفة، هنطلب مثلا من الطلبة إن هم يروحوا البيت يعدوا حاجات معينة في البيت، يسألوا أفراد العيلة عن حاجات معينة، ولما يرجعوا المدرسة يبتدوا يستخدموا المعلومات اللي هم جمعوها. الواجب لازم يكون مسلي، ومش المفروض إن هو يتطلب مدرس خصوصي. لو تطلب مدرس خصوصي يبقى فيه مشكلة، والواجب مش المفروض إن هو يكرر الطلبة في المدرسة. لما الطلبة يروحوا المرحلة الإعدادية، الواجب هيكون خلال ما يتعداش الساعة. في المرحلة دي أهم حاجة بتكون إن الطالب يمارس مهارات اللغة اللي هي قراءة وكتابة، يقرأ كتب ويكتب. وأكيد القراءة مهمة برضه حتى في السن الصغير. فإحنا نحب إن الأهالي أو يقروا لأولادهم، ولما أولادهم يبقوا قادرين إن هم يقروا لأهاليهم في البيت.
I hope that answers your question, Mona. Thank you for that. It was really quite good. We have another question from Shireen. Thank you, Shireen, for this. Did you apply for PYP only or the 3 curriculums? What I think you mean, did we apply for candidacy for 3 IB programs, not curriculums? No, we have only applied for primary years program because next year Uptown International School will open for 3-year-olds through grade 3. So there's no reason, and we can't apply for MYP or diploma. We will add grades 6 and 7 in the year 2022. For September 2022, we'll begin teaching grades 6 and 7. So before we start that in 2022, we will apply for IB Middle Years Program candidacy. In about 6 years, we should hope to have our IB Diploma authorized. So there's no reason to do that now. In order to have MYP candidacy, for example, you should have a middle years program coordinator. You should have students in the program, which we don't have because we're not offering it. And we need to have all those resources available. And there's no school that would apply for MYP candidacy multiple years in advance.
السؤال بيقول هل احنا قدمنا على في البكالوريا الدولية على نظام المرحلة الابتدائية بس، أم قدمنا على مراحل الإعدادية والثانوي؟ فهو احنا السنه الجايه هنفتح لحد ثالثه ابتدائي، وده كله من خلال المرحله الابتدائيه في البكالوريا الدوليه. فمفيش اي احتياج ان احنا نقدم للمرحله الاعداديه او الثانوي. احنا هنبتدي نفتح مرحله السادسه والسابعه في سنه 2022 ان شاء الله. لما نفتح المرحله دي هنبتدي نقدم على برنامج السنوات الاعداديه في البكالوريا الدوليه، ولان الاعتماد لازم يتم من خلال وجود منسق للمناهج، من خلال وجود طلبه، من خلال تطبيق البرنامج، وده مش هيكون متوفر اكيد قبل 2022.
We have a statement, not a question, from Ndoa, but it's a trick way of asking a question, so I really appreciate that creativity. I won't ask if there's a learning support center in school. Well, thank you for not asking that question. Then you ask a question, which is nice, is there a special needs department in the school? We believe that, we do not believe in shadow teachers, and we do not believe in pull-out instruction for kids who have specific needs. We should be able to meet the needs of almost every student through differentiation of instruction. We spoke about this earlier today, and that is not all kids are at the same place. Some are learn differently. Some need a bit more time for math, or they need a bit more time to understand a concept in art. It may be that they have a physical disability, or they may have some form of learning disability. We approach each learning disability or need or physical need on an individual basis. If we cannot meet the need of the student in the classroom, then we do not accept those students. It would be a disservice to you and to them. But if you have a situation, I suggest you contact us as a school, and that we start that conversation of what the issue might be, and if we are able to meet that some way. Usually we rely on professional assessment and observation to make that assessment. I think in some schools, some students are misdiagnosed with problems, or the problem is very simplistic, that you can meet that need through differentiation of instruction and some teacher training. The school has a special needs coordinator who is an expert in working with kids with learning needs. That person coaches the teacher and the teaching staff to meet the needs of the kids in the classroom. There will be no one sitting beside your kid holding their hand or doing tutoring with them during PE. We don't believe in that. It's important that the student feel a part of the classroom. It's their learning family. And again, we're more concerned about the social, emotional, and psychological well-being and development of our students. So therefore, there will be no shadow teachers and no pull-out. Again, if you need clarification, just give us a call. We'll talk about it.
الترجمة هو سؤال بيتكلم على التعليم الخاص أو الطلبة ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة. هل إحنا عندنا جزء منفصل لتعليم الطلبة دي ولا في نظام مختلف للمدرسة؟ إحنا كمدرسة غير مؤمنين بإن إحنا نطلع الطالب من الفصل ونعامله كعالم مختلف أو نقعده في مكان مختلف عن بقية الطلبة. احنا غير مؤمنين بان يكون في مدرس مخصوص لطالب معين، وده كله بناء على اهتمامنا بالصحه النفسيه والاجتماعيه للطالب. لو في مدرس مخصوص لطالب واحد هو هيحس ان هو مختلف، والاخرين هيحسوا ان هو مختلف، وده هيمنعه من ان هو يتعامل مع الاخرين، ودي حاجه احنا مش عاوزينها تحصل. احنا عندنا برنامج ان احنا نقدر نلبي احتياجات الطلبه، ومؤمنين ان الطلبه مختلفين وفي فروق فرديه احنا محتاجين ان احنا نلبي احتياجات الطلبه. محتاجين يعني اهتمام خاص هيتلبى بنفس الطريقه من خلال تلبيه الفروق الفرديه من جوه الفصل نفسه، علشان يحس ان هو جزء من الفصل وراعي صحته النفسيه. هيكون في منسقه مهتمه بالاطفال ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصه، وهي هتبقى مسؤوله عن البرنامج اللي بيطبق معهم من خلال مدرسه الفصل.
Scared me. I hope that answered your question, Doa. I see that you've asked that question again, 2 questions down. So
لو في أي حالة معينة إحنا بنتعامل مع كل حالة على إنها حالة فردية وبنحتاج
Hi, I hope you're able to hear us. We've had some technical problems here and someone will be destroyed later as a result. Don't worry, I can manage that. The question that we were trying to address at that time is Atl, the platform I mentioned earlier. Atl is, some of you who are involved in IB schools or have students who've been enrolled there are aware of a program called Manage Back. And Manage Back helps us indicate to anyone who wants to read it what we're teaching, what we're learning, when something might be due, like an assignment, results or narrative reports or even grades based on your students' performance. So it's a way for parents to get information. I need the questions. So Atl is a competitor to Manage Back, and Atl was developed by a company in India with IB teacher input, specifically primary years program teacher input. So it has launched, one of our board members is Rochelle McKinnon, who is one of the first schools in Europe to use that system. And we have undergone training for that. They have online teaching platforms, but also the traditional approach, but it's easier to use for students, parents, and for us. And so Atl is the means that is where the curriculum will be stored, where any kind of online teaching that might be required next school year, unfortunately, would be established and set up and so forth. You'll find it to be quite easy to use. I'll let Nesma mention briefly, and then we'll go to another question.
هو السؤال كان على برنامج تودل وهو ده البرنامج اللي احنا بنستخدمه كوسيلة لمشاركة المحتوى أو الأفعال اللي بيتم تعلمها في المراحل المختلفة مع الأهل ومشاركة أكيد التقارير كمان. فكل طالب هيبقى فيه تقرير مفصل بإيه بالظبط اللي هو قدر إن هو يحققه وإيه محتاج إن هو يشتغل عليه، وده برضه هيكون موجود على البرنامج. مس رشال هي واحدة من أعضاء البورد أو المجلس بتاع المدرسة، وهي كانت من أوائل الناس اللي استخدمت تودل خارج مصر.
Okay, thank you for that question, Mohammed. We have a statement from Mohammed Abdulaziz. I wish you the very best of luck. Thank you very kindly. Mola Omar.
Where's the school? المدرسة في المقطم، موقع المدرسة موجود، المكان بالظبط موجود على موقع المدرسة UISEgypt.com.
Yasmin Azad asks, do you have a class for grade 6? No, not at this time. The school opened all the way up to grade 3. And then the year after, so the 2021-22 school year, it'll be grades 4 and 5. And then for the 22-23 school year, we'll end up with grade 6, but not now. When to apply for grade 6 applicants? In 2 years. Omnea asks, hi, wanted to know what are the core differences between the British education and the IB curriculum? We've already answered that question, but thank you for repeating it. Naveen asks, wish you all the best. Thank you, Naveen. We wish all the best for you too. We've answered a question already regarding Common Core. Heba says good luck. Thank you, Heba. We love it. Mona, we've already answered your question on homework. Marwa says best of luck. Thank you, Marwa. We look forward to working with you in the future. We've answered the question on special educational needs and ATLs and special education. So maybe I should go the other direction on this. Yes, Abir asks, does the IB system include play-based learning in the early years? The short answer to that is 100%. So moving on to the next question. Did you apply for PYP only? We've already answered that question. The answer was yes, and we gave the reasons earlier. With that, yeah, we've already answered that question. And so this is all the questions we have at the moment. Let's have our technician check and see if there's anything else that's been asked. If not, this is a good time to ask a question. We are free for the next 23 minutes. Surprise, there's more questions. Heba tells us our voices are clear, no worries. Thank you, Heba. We were a little bit worried about the video feed because it has a delay on our side, but as long as you can hear us, that's all that matters. Thank you, Ro, for your compliments on everything except my hair loss. I appreciate that. And thank you for your good wishes. We need them and appreciate them. Ahmed asks, what makes you a promising school and what do you have in your school that others, I assume the word should be don't. First of all, we're teaching a pure PYP program. It's not modified to suit what someone else may feel is important. For example, we do not separate the teaching of English or math from the unit of inquiry. Pedagogically, that is not correct, and it's not correct by the IB program. Some schools do that, and we do not believe in that. So I'll make one statement at a time and let Nesma translate so it's easier for her to follow.
Okay. السؤال هو ايه اللي بيميزنا كمدرسة عن باقي المدارس؟ وكانت النقطة اللي مستر أندي ذكرها هو إن احنا بنطبق نظام البكالوريا الدولية كما يجب أن يكون بدون أي تعديلات. وجزء من ده هو تدريس اللغة الإنجليزية وكتاب من خلال وحدات البحث مش بطريقة منفصلة أو مش كمواد منفصلة، وده بيحقق جزء التعليم إعادة المواد الدراسية جزء من برنامج البكالوريا الدولي.
Another strong point where we differ from many schools, not all, but many here in Egypt especially, is there's a very strong emphasis on Arabic fluency. We want our students to be masters of the language. So it is taught often and more than the national requirements.
برضو احنا كمدرسة مؤمنين جدا بأهمية اللغة العربية كلغة وجزء مهم جدا من برنامجنا هو ان احنا نوصل بالطلبة انهم يوصلوا لاتقان اللغة العربية الفصحى اتقان كامل، وبنقدم لهم برنامج في غني باللغة العربية وفي حصص اللغة العربية اكتر من مدارس كتير موجودة.
We believe in physical education. Students learn a lot through physical education. They learn to communicate, they learn skills of sharing and responsibility, and of course, we promote good health. So many schools neglect physical education as some sort of extra. We see it as equally important as any other subject.
احنا برضه مؤمنين بأهمية التربية الرياضية ومش بنتجاهلها زي جزء من المدارس، وشايفين ان هي بنفس الأهمية زي بقية المواد، لأن هي بتعلم طلاب مهارات كتير زائد طبعا أهميتها للصحة.
We believe in the importance of parents involved in their kids' education. We're required by the IB, for example, to have a parent association that works with us, not against us, and we don't work against the parents. We need to be working together to improve and develop all of our students and ourselves.
احنا مؤمنين بأهمية دور الأهل في العملية التعليمية لأبنائهم، وأكيد هيكون في مجموعة من الأهل بتشتغل مع المدرسة وبتطور في المدرسة. احنا مش موجودين عشان نبقى ضد الأهل هم جزء من المدرسة ولازم يبقى ليهم دور في تطويرها.
We believe in policies and procedures, that everyone is treated equally in our system. That someone is not treated differently because of whatever it is. We don't care about that. Everybody's equally and everybody's important to us.
احنا مؤمنين بأهمية سياسات المدرسة وتطبيقها، ومؤمنين ان كل شخص هو ليه دور في العملية التعليمية، ولازم ننظم الأدوار دي من خلال السياسات بتاعة المدرسة.
I think our facilities are really quite good. Some schools may have better options in certain things, like a better PE facility or whatever, but it's not just the classroom, it's the way we use the classroom. And so when you enter our school, you'll see the classrooms are designed for student learning. not for teacher control or some traditional way of approaching education. So you'll see kids in flexible seating, not everyone sits at a desk. Kids are using centers in the classroom to learn, and you're not going to see a lot of teacher-directed instruction. It's really about student-centered approaches to teaching and learning. It will look very different from the traditional classroom. We're very proud of that, and that's exactly what's going to happen.
برضه مستر اندي بيذكر المرافق اللي موجوده في المدرسه، شكل الفصول، طريقه حتى جلوس الطلبه جوه الفصول انها مختلفه وفيها مرونه اكتر، واكيد المرافق الخاصه بالالعاب الرياضيه اكيد في احسن، بس احنا الالعاب والاماكن المخصصه لممارسه الرياضه والفصول على مستوى عالي.
We believe in the importance of a library and the teaching of literacy. So many school librarians are the equivalent of a book closet, and they're not really sure what to do with the library. They need to have one because the government says so, but they don't really know what to do with it. We know what to do with the library, and that is teaching and learning. And I think our initial library will have approximately 20,000 titles in it. And we will build on that over time. A good library should have 40 to 50,000 titles. And of course, it will be built over time to address the needs of the secondary students as well.
احنا مؤمنين بأهمية المكتبة وعارفين ازاي بيتم استخدامها في العملية التعليمية. احنا عايزين نبقى عندنا مكتبة فيها 20,000 كتاب وهدفنا ان هو يوصلوا ل 40,000 كتاب. فكرة وجود مكتبة صغيرة في المدرسة أو وجود مصادر محدودة من الكتب أو مصادر تعلم محدودة مش بتخدم العملية التعليمية، فإحنا مؤمنين بأهمية المصادر الموجودة في المكتبة وأهمية المكتبة في العملية التعليمية.
Our science labs will be very safety oriented, but also well supplied for actual use. It's not just some decoration. Kids should be experimenting and in a safe way and exploring, answering their own questions.
معامل العلوم عندنا على مستوى عالي ومراعين فيها جدا عنصر الامن والامان، فهي مؤمنه جدا لاعلى درجه، واحنا بنتيح للطلبه ان هم يقدروا يعملوا عمليات البحث والاستقصاء جوه المعهد.
I think teacher training is also going to be very different. We've been interviewing, Nesma and I and others, since the beginning of December. And not just anyone can work in this school. You need to have, of course, the correct government-approved qualifications, whether that's for Egyptians or for foreigners. And then you need to also have the ability to implement the IB system. So our teachers will receive more or less constant professional development. Those of you who are teachers who are online understand that your schools probably have lots of meetings, many of which you think is probably a waste of your time or are not really developing you as an educator. Our philosophy is that every single staff meeting is an opportunity for development. So there will be something to talk about every time, and that could be formative assessment or summative assessment or positive discipline, or something about student inquiry or the approaches to learning or whatever. But there is that constant development of our staff, and staff who cannot develop will have to find a new school to work in. We, of course, are required by the IB, but also believe in IB workshops and training. And so those, again, will be taking place. So there's lots of staff development and observation and assisting staff to become better teachers. So I think that's different. We don't just unleash people in the classroom and hope they don't make a problem. We really are intervening a lot and talking to our staff. We believe in them, but we're here to help them and not just rule by terror. As much fun as that can be.
نقطة ثانية بتخلينا مختلفين هو نقطة تدريب المعلمين، واحنا مؤمنين جدا بأهمية تدريب المعلمين وملاحظتهم ومساندتهم من خلال تطبيقهم للنظام. وده بيبدأ من مرحلة اختيارهم وطبعا مرحلة المقابلات الشخصية، وبنختار مدرسين مؤهلين لتدريس النظام سواء من طرق التعليم اللي بيستعملوها أو من خلال متطلبات الوزارة للمعلمين ومن خلال خبرتهم أكيد. ومؤمنين إن كل لقاء ما بين المدرسين وأي وقت المدرسين يقدروا إن هم يتابعوا فيه هو فرصة للتدريب في أي نقطة من النقاط اللي بتقدر إن هي تطور في مهاراتهم كمعلم.
Thank you, Alpin, for your question. I hope we answered it. If you would like more details or information or want to talk to me in person, we can arrange that. So just let us know. Then what's the capacity of the class? In primary, it's somewhere between 18 and 20. The government tells us that we can put 24 kids in the classroom, but with the way we teach and learn, that's really not possible. 24 if they're all sitting in a row and causing problems with each other and not really learning. But it will most likely be around 18, 19, this range. Okay, I hope that answers your question. In secondary, we can certainly fit to 24, but I don't see that happening for many years, so we're not worried about it. I think there's, yeah, go ahead.
السؤال كان عدد الطلاب جوه الفصل. الوزارة سمحت لنا ب 24 طالب جوه الفصل، بس طبعا احنا مؤمنين ان هتبقى عدد الطلاب كبير ومش هيبقى في مرونة الحركة جوه الفصل، فعشان كده بالنسبة لنا عدد الطلاب هيكون ما بين 18 ل 20 طالب بالنسبة للمرحلة الابتدائية. أما بالنسبة للثانوي فنقدر إن احنا نوصل ل 24.
Thank you, Ahmed. We're going to the next question. It's from Mona. Mona, you've asked this question before, and we've already answered it. But to briefly answer it again, the question is there an official body that provides training for teachers and admins to qualify them to be teachers and or employees? The answer to that is yes. The IB itself requires us to train teachers with IB approved and trained workshop leaders. So same thing goes for administration. As a director, I have to go through IB training also. And that answers your question. So if I didn't get it this time, ask it again or make it more clear. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. السؤال هو هل بيتم تدريب المدرسين من خلال أي منظمة ليها علاقة بالبكالوريا الدولية؟ والإجابة هو نعم أكيد. منظمة البكالوريا الدولية هي المسؤولة عن تدريب المعلمين، وده بيتم من خلال مدربين معتمدين من قبل المنظمة دي، هم اللي بيقدروا يدربوا المدرسين وبيأهلوهم إنهم يقدروا يدرسوا إطار التعليم.
So we don't have any more questions being on our in our folder. So if you have a question, I would appreciate if you would send that to us now. You should know today is Nesma's birthday. Like me, she's still 29.
Yeah, of course.
I've been 29 for 20 years.
Exactly.
And I'm enjoying it, frankly.
Happy birthday. For how many years? Thank you.
Yeah.
For almost 14 years.
You? So we're just here taking your questions about IB programs or about the school. So I'll ramble while we're waiting, unless there was a question. Oh, thank you. So can you accept my son after foundation stage 1? I would recommend that you call the number for admissions, and that question is for them. I let the admissions department manage those questions so that we have consistency and clarity. But we have a hotline number on the website, on this Facebook page and our Instagram page, and you can ask that question, okay? Sorry that I'm deflecting it, but admissions is admissions, and we'll leave it there. I like being part of the admissions process. We conduct a parent workshop so that we can see what people know about the programs and what their expectations are, and if we can address those needs. So if you're a parent who needs 3 hours of homework at night for your 5-year-old, then we know that's not a good fit for us and for you. And so there's no reason for both of us to suffer and go through that trauma. But it's also a chance for you to have a one-on-one dialogue with me and Nesma, perhaps others, as part of an interview and workshop situation. You should know our assessments for admissions are based on skills, not necessarily how much math they've memorized or if they can, climb a tree. We're looking for those skills, like do you recognize shapes and colors? Can you ask questions? And so it's very open. And again, this is based on what we know about children's development. All kids develop differently, especially younger children. They're all over the range. The next question is from Hala. Thank you, Hala. How can I apply as a teacher? You can go to our website, uisegypt.com, and go to careers, and careers will tell you what to do. Essentially, you'll email a CV to the Human Resources Department, and then if you meet qualifications, you'll be contacted possibly for an interview. But again, you need to have certain qualifications set by the Egyptian Ministry of Education. And we prefer certain types of experience. So the first step is to go to the website and find out what we have available in careers, and then send your CV to the careers email. Thank you for asking that question. We are open to any more questions. Do you have a question for me about anything in IB Diploma?
A lot of questions.
Ask me a question, Nesma.
Okay, so how do students choose subjects in the IB Diploma, and how can they determine which subjects to choose?
It's an interesting question. So there's lots of options in IB Diploma. So the first thing I'll say is, what do you have to do in IB Diploma? You have to study 2 languages, period. If you have an Egyptian passport, you will study Arabic literature, language A, period. No options there. Your second language can be anything else. We think English is a good option for kids, but you could also do it in French, German, Mandarin, whatever it might be. If you're applying to universities in the United States or Britain or wherever, then that should be a consideration of which language you take, or which language you are strongest at. But usually it's going to be in a school like ours, it'll be English. Students will take 1 math, and there are 4 levels, 2 different types of math, but divided into 2 levels each. So you really have 4 options of math. And depending on what you want to do for your career, or what your parents have decided you're going to do, you are going to know which types of sciences you either need to have or not have. There is a science for everybody. Andy Dailey is not taking physics. That's never going to happen. It's too math-based, and I'm just not strong in math. And so we consider what the kids' strengths are, their interests, their career goal, previous work in the school in terms of what they know and what they don't know. So again, you have to take 2 languages, 1 math, 1 or 2 sciences, 1 or 2 social sciences, again, depending on what you're going to study at university usually. And depending on what you take in science and social science, you can determine if you would like to take a 3rd language, or if you want to take music, visual arts, theater arts, film studies, whatever that might be. So you have some creatives as well. So that's the main part of the diploma in terms of subject teaching. All students, however, are also required to complete something called creativity, activity, and service, which is learning outside the school and applying those skills. So it might be community service, it might be learning to play the piano, things like that. Then you have a course, it's philosophical in nature, and is about how do we know what we know. It's called Theory of Knowledge. You have to take that as a student. And then you have a 4,000-word research paper on a university level, which is like real university experience. It's called the extended essay. So you have this whole bundle. So to get an IB diploma, you will take 6 subjects, whatever that might be, which is a minimum of 2 languages and 1 each of everything else, at least. And then you have the core of theory of knowledge, creativity, activity, and service, called CAS, and the extended essay. So you know what subject to take based on your strengths, your weaknesses, university requirements, programs for your university, subjects. So if pharmacy, if you're doing pharmacy, or if you're doing medical, or if you're going to become a veterinarian, or an engineer, or a teacher, or a historian. That really helps determine what you're going to take. I know that was a long answer, but I could not wait to talk about diploma. So we have no questions right now. Thank you, Sarah, for the birthday greetings to Nesma.
Thank you.
You're asking about TOK, Anas. If you're asking about the diploma, yes, theory of knowledge is a requirement for the diploma. And it's the IB requirement is a minimum of 100 hours of instruction over the 18 months of the course. And it's really not 18 months, of course, it's a little bit less, it's more like 16, because the students in theory of knowledge make a presentation and write an essay. And that has to be finished around March instead of May, so it's probably more like 16 months. Everyone I know who's taught theory of knowledge absolutely loves this subject. When I was teaching at New Cairo British International School, I was teaching IB history, and I was running the CAS program, which we mentioned a minute ago. So where was I going with that? Theory of knowledge, we had a pre-IB diploma theory of knowledge course, so I've had a little bit of experience teaching something like that. It's really, really great. So Nas has very specific questions. So I'm guessing you're an IB diploma teacher or an administrator. What's the total number of CAS reflections required during diploma time? Lovely question. The answer to that is depends on what the kids are doing. So you're looking for a magical formula, but IB is about a student-centered approach, depending on what you're doing. So if a student has some very large projects that they're doing, which could be organizing a garden where kids learn everything about gardening and composting and planting, and then also cooking and then selling salsa. Let's say they made salsa and they sold, or spaghetti sauce, and they sold that to support a charity. That's a very involved project, and that might require quite a bit of reflection. But if you're learning to play the guitar, there's no reason to have a reflection every time you have a lesson. Like today, I learned to move my fingers over strings. And then the next week, I learned to move my finger over 3 strings. We don't need to hear that. What we need as CAS coordinators or IB administrators is to see progress and measure that against the learning outcomes. And so guitar lessons might need reflection once every month or once every 3 weeks. It depends on a lot of factors. So there is a Facebook group called IB CAS Coordinator Support Group. If you're a CAS coordinator, you might want to consider joining that. I'm an administrator in that, but I don't lecture there. What I do is love people to ask questions and for the whole group to come up with answers themselves. So consider joining that Facebook group. So Anas states, I was a PYP coordinator 4 years ago. Congratulations, glad you're still alive. Willing to go back to IB World, especially diploma. Well, I think diploma is a very rewarding system to teach in because you're teaching at a university level. The kids who are often involved in that or choose to take the diploma are great students who have a good sense of responsibility and they want to change the world or reflect upon themselves and how to become a better person or a better student. So I wish you good luck. And for our school, we will start hiring IB diploma teachers in about 6 years. So if you're still around, we'll talk about that then. But otherwise, we have a lot of good IB diploma programs in this country here in Egypt. And I've had the pleasure of working in 2 of them. So good luck. And if there's more questions, feel free to type them in since we've got 9 more minutes of online FaceTime through Zoom or whatever this program is. Any questions? Nesma, I'll ask you a question about PYP. Can you talk about the exhibition in grade 5? What is that and what does it involve and what is its purpose?
So the purpose of the exhibition is that students would take an action, show their agency, and through coming up with some issues, real issues that they would like to find solutions for or help in their community. So basically, the whole unit is built based on what students want exactly to do. So they come up with the central idea or the big idea, they come up with the issues they would like to solve or find solutions for, and then they start to determine how they can solve these problems. Part of it is very much related to CAS, which is, for example, making things, selling them, raising money for charity, whatever it involves. It depends on the issue itself. And then the main purpose is that they use all the knowledge and the skills they have learned throughout the primary years program into real life application, and that they can communicate the knowledge and their understanding of their community issues. You want more clarification?
What I've witnessed in exhibition is that we have groups of kids working together. Is that normal?
Yeah, because this is how it works in the primary years program. It's always collaborative work. Students work together. Everyone has his or her role in the group, and they share the responsibility together, and they come up with the understanding together.
What do you think some common things as kids work on in exhibition, like subjects specifically, or issues?
Students love to talk about pollution. I saw that many times.
It's relevant to here.
Yeah. And I saw bullying as well, because it's a common problem in all schools. So many students love to talk about this issue. So these are the main ones.
I worked in a school a few years ago, and every exhibition topic was about animal rights, which would be an interesting topic here regarding the Giza Zoo. Anyway, we're still waiting for a couple questions. We got about 5 minutes, and we encourage you to ask us literally anything. Oh, we got a question. What are the possibilities that DP graduates will have this year in terms of joining universities post-COVID-19? Is there a possible compromise in requirements? The IB has resolved this issue, and right now they are, for the diploma level students, because of course in some countries they simply cannot attend examinations because it's against the law, and the IB does not encourage anyone to break the law. And of course, we don't want to put any kids at risk of exposure to potentially life-threatening illness. So what they're doing is they're working with teachers directly to understand what examinations of things they've done in the school. There's something called internal assessments, ADAS, that you should be familiar with maybe as a diploma teacher or as a diploma wannabe teacher. So there's been significant projects done that are IB required over the last year and a half of instruction. So the IB requires those projects to be sent in to be examined by examiners. So they're looking at the body of evidence. So things they've done in class, copies of examinations, copy of essays that they've done, or lab reports from experiments, and those internal assessments. And from that coming up with a reasonable mark. So they're foregoing examinations that would normally take place. Universities, as far as I'm aware, have indicated this is acceptable because, of course, the British A-levels have been canceled and they're doing the same thing. And most national examinations that, like what is it called, the AP exams in the US, the same thing has happened. The ACT and SAT exams have been canceled. All this, so there's a common approach. Let's look at the body of work the student has done over the last months, year and a half, and come up with a reasonable assignment of grade. Because this is happening for SAT, ACT, IB, AP, and A-level exams, the universities understand this is an exceptional situation, and of course they have to admit students. So good question. You can find out more about the official IB response on the website, ibo.org. But yeah, right now I am aware that teachers are sending in the materials these days for assessment outside the school, so that we have a reasonable, balanced, neutral approach to marking. Thank you for that great question.
I have a question related to this one.
Okay.
So you mentioned internal assessments. So how are they similar or different from formative assessments? And like what strategies and tools are used for these assessments?
Well, in the diploma, it depends on the subject. The only subject I am an expert in is IB history. So an internal assessment in IB Diploma history, grades 11 and 12, would be an independent research project. And through that independent research project, they formulate their own research question. So we'd have an agency there where kids are determining what they're going to do. So the students come up with their own research question. They determine what resources they need to address that question. They read the resources. It could be books or journal articles or whatever. Watch a movie, which may have something to do with this. And then they evaluate the importance of that to the research. So why did you choose this source? Well, I chose it because of this, 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 and this. And so they do that for two of the resources. Then they address their question through the research, footnotes, and all those good things. And at the end of that, they come up with a conclusion, like any other research paper. But the final step is very interesting, is they have to evaluate to what extent did they play the role of a historian. Historians are not storytellers. They have facts and information, and they analyze that fact and information to address a question. So in doing so, you have to put certain importance on certain sources and less importance on other sources. So that is what a historian does. We determine, why is this source important? What did I learn that I didn't know about how historians work based on my research? And it could be that there's often a lack of resources, or resources that are really good are in a language I cannot read. So how do historians solve that problem? So to make a long story short, they came up with their own research question, they conduct their research, they analyze their sources, and then they reflect on the role and actions of historians. So it really puts them in that role as historians, not just answering questions through an essay paper. They only do one in this IB history. In some subjects, it's lab experiments in sciences, for example. They must conduct experiments and record those. All right, I hope I answered your question. If not, God knows I could talk about it for 16 hours. We do not have any further questions that I can see on either Facebook or in Zoom. So we want to thank you. And as far as I know, this video will be is recording and will be available for you to watch or play back. I'm fairly certain that at some point in the next few weeks, we'll offer another online session where we can answer more questions, and hopefully we'll have less technical issues. But in Egypt, we always hope for that. So that's our reality, especially with all the internet usage going on now because of our semi-lockdown and curfew. So we thank you very much. Really great questions. I really appreciate them. I think Nesma was exhausted from all the translating.
I'm fine. I survived.
Anyway, thank you for everything. Thank you for your good wishes for our school and for us as individuals, and the happy birthday greetings to Nesma.
Yay.
All right. Thank you. And bye-bye.